Now we're ready. Okay, let's wait a couple more minutes. All right. Okay, let's start. Good evening and good afternoon, Unicorn fan. Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns Surprise Town Hall with Aaron Marshmidt, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder. This is a super special town hall event to keep the hype going until jousting is finally ready to play. As always, we've got Aaron here for the vibes, the hype, and to spill the tea. You got us any updates, Aaron?
It's hard to describe how much is literally about to launch. I would expect everyone has seen what's new in CU on 316. And so rather than run through every single bell and whistle that we're adding to the experience, I'd love to just dive into questions as a starting point and kind of get the hype train rolling. I think I told people earlier, I said it on the space yesterday with Jonah, like Jousted is the best looking game I've ever worked on in my career. A massive shout out to the team who has kind of, over the last 90 days in particular, really come together to deliver something special on that front. And I think that simultaneous with many of the player experience improvements that we've shipped across the farm sim, couldn't have asked for a better kind of 1-2 punch to be releasing today. So I'm super pumped. I think honestly, this is the most anticipated release on my mind really since May 5th of last year. So I'm super, super pumped, Sparkly. But yeah, let's dive into questions.
All right. Okay, let's make this intro nice and quick. I'm sure y'all know the drill. We are limited to three questions, unless we're not. And we prioritize spoken questions over written ones. And we also have anonymous questions. So I see that five people have asked their anonymous questions in the town hall. Let's hop into it really quickly. We have somebody asking, when jousting?
I won't even answer that troll.
Gee, I don't know,
Imminently,
man.
imminently, imminent. Let me look behind me at the engineers in the back room.
Oh boy.
They don't look too nervous, so imminently.
Ooh, they're in the zone. Loving it. Okay. So, Mr. When jousting. Yeah, I don't know. All right, we have another question. When marketing, will see you face any liquidity problem given the recent events?
Yeah, the quick answer to the win marketing question is really a question. Like, if you don't see what we're already doing, me going on the spaces yesterday, everything that we're doing on the crypto Twitter front, the giveaways that we've been doing, like that is the marketing effort. If you have a specific suggestion, we'd love to hear it. But I'm certainly tired of hearing like win marketing when we've actually had the most new daily active wallets ramp in, over the last 30 days that we've really had since launch. So we are starting to see direct results and traction from those initial marketing efforts. And then, as I said before, we have some um, additional campaigns that will be going live, including some kind of Web 2 to Web 3 conversion campaigns where we'll be advertising on platforms like Twitter and eventually others like YouTube and TikTok, trying to drive people into effectively free NFT giveaways, right? So, kind of taking the corn drop and reimagining it Web 2 to Web 3. as well as additional great corn drops. So over the course of the next week or two, you're going to see partnerships with Derby Stars and drops to the Zed Run, D Race, and several other kind of racing specific communities, obviously to try and catalyze and capitalize on this moment with the jousting release itself. I think from the perspective of the community, and one of the reasons that we did a preseason as well was let's give 6 weeks of data to the design team to kind of make sure that everything is behaving as expected with respect to jousting. Obviously, every 2 weeks, there are potentially going to be meta changes that we push based on what we see happening in the wild, right? We've run tens of thousands of simulations of these tournaments in our Monte Carlo sim tool, but at the end of the day, we need to see what the behavior is, live. Um, the Grand Jousting Tournament, which will follow the conclusion of preseason, is going to have a much larger prize pool and will also have its own set of kind of marketing campaigns associated and tied with it. So it's really important for the community to understand that when marketing is not any discrete moment, it is an ongoing thing that is happening every single day across a number of channels. And I am very interested, again, with the question I asked at the beginning. If you have a suggestion or something that you don't think um, you know, if you have a suggestion for an idea that you think would be good, we want to hear it. We're always listening. Next question, Sparkly.
All right. When see you planning to collaborate with major game guilds for jousting?
We are very close to the YGG team and all flavors of the YGG crew. So I know Christina, our director of marketing, is meeting with several groups, several of the YGG flavors while they're out here for GDC next week here in San Francisco. So yeah, we are looking very actively at exploring guild partnerships with the few that have kind of survived in this current market. And obviously, we're closest to YGG, given Gabby's been an advisor in us in Laguna for a long time, and clearly we have a lot of interest in continuing to collaborate with them. I think we may even have the Real Cup Kate is here. She's YGG's ambassador on the Crypto Unicorns front. So yeah, you're going to see us leaning more and more into those partnerships. Obviously, with things like delegation coming in the near future, that will be even more helpful. From the guild standpoint. I also realized, Sparkle, I didn't address the liquidity question, which I think was tied in with marketing. I think that's related to all this SVB USDC stuff. Obviously, the last weekend was pretty stressful, a little unprecedented. At the end of the day, everything's fine. We went ahead and did a quarterly. We basically liquidated a quarter worth of burn about a week earlier on that front than we normally would, just to ensure, obviously, USDC had hit peg again and make sure if there was any other short-term mess that we were not affected by that. Laguna, the entity itself, does not bank with SVB. We bank with Chase, which, Chase is the largest bank in America. And, if that one fails, I think we all have bigger problems. I'd be happy to wax philosophical on all things USDC and what was good and bad about what just happened if people have specific questions on that. But as far as the immediate question and the concern around liquidity and our ability to continue to operate, no issues on that front. And we continue moving forward.
All right. Okay. Next up, we have another anonymous person saying, I dream of a bright future in which players can provide liquidity to the RMP, desirably like on Uniswap, V3 using price ranges if possible. Also, would love to have a borrow service for RMP materials so that we could cover positions or even short them. Do you think this sort of financial layer could be added? Thanks a lot for your invention and keep up the hard work.
All the hard work and effort and credit certainly goes to the team on that front. I really love the invention that is the RMP. I think it's one of the pillars, the kind of core the core kind of, how do I put this? It's one of the core theses that we had kind of going into this, or hypothesis maybe is a better way of putting it, around it being a really helpful partner to the design team and helping naturally balance the economy just via the kind of forces of supply and demand. I have thought, and we have discussed internally, what it would look like to add that additional layer that would allow players to provide liquidity and things into the RMP. Um, there's ways to kind of take half measures where maybe we create an event where you would feed the input materials into that event. That would allow us to kind of seed or leverage those materials as the seed for that liquidity, which would be kind of like a half step way of doing it. So it is something that's very interesting. I think we already get enough criticism. It was kind of interesting, like the anyone who tuned into the Jonah Blake podcast or Spaces yesterday. He started very surface level. Obviously, he was brand new to the IP for the most part, and so you kind of got to see me walk somebody through and peel back the layers and layers and layers and get to the complexity and depth of the game. And we already get a lot of that criticism, right? So adding, a liquidity providing layer on top of the RMP kind of takes us even further into that direction. And I'm just not sure that that would be the right way to expand the IP. But I could see in a far future that that becomes a great thing we add to the farm sim, especially if it continues to if the thesis around it being the economic kind of foundation for our game economy continues to play out over time, adding in the ability for players themselves to add and remove liquidity would be very interesting. I don't know if one of our designers, I don't see him in here currently, he'd be freaking out about this because it would make his life a lot harder on the tuning and balancing front. But TLDR, we have considered it. It is interesting. It would be something that would be in the far future if we ever considered it. I think there's a lot of our designer is here. He said V3 RMP lull. So who knows? Maybe one day. But I think right now it's way more important to prioritize the battle loops and the things at the top of the funnel that are going to get more people in. Whoever just said make it two separate markets. So one thing that's going to be interesting is like we are with the launch of the tribes feature eventually will include a separate kind of tribe marketplace that's going to add a lot of really interesting depth to the overall equation and effectively let tribes compete against each other in that marketplace. So anyway, I think there's a lot of ideas there that are on the roadmap that are going to add a lot of depth and fun to the RMP. Beyond just an update to it. Goliath, welcome again, sir. Your suggestion last time I think was phenomenal. Just around making the RMP a little bit more like what it is, which is a real-time market. So having and displaying it as such versus kind of just the green and red that we do now is a more short-term thing that I think we can put in place that would be pretty exciting. So the RMP is something that we will definitely return to over time and make adjustments around. Yeah, it's a cool suggestion. The DeFi DGen and me really likes that suggestion. I question whether more players would, but it is a cool idea.
Definitely agreed. Okay, another one. So this is about jousting. Jousting potions affect base stats. Will this be a simple addition of points, or do the gene multiplier specifically, affect the boosted base stats?
Oh God, you're gonna have to give that one to me again.
So jousting potions affect base stats. Is this going to be a simple plus int, plus endurance, or do genes affect it in some way, or is it a multiplier? How does it work?
No, your genes are obviously going to give you the stats that you have, right? And then these boosts are going to be a percentage of those stats as they exist, right? So once you've evolved to an adult, until we release further evolutionary tiers and other cool things we're thinking about long term, you're going to just you need to think of a potion as a percent boost against whatever stat you're trying to buff, not related to necessarily anything to do with the genes, right? Because at that point the genes have already output the stats that you have in that corn.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is pretty good for for people who thought that potions were just flat values. There's alpha. Okay, next question. The market seems pretty flooded with keystones from distribution from loot boxes and leaderboards. Is there any chance we can remove them from loot boxes and leaderboards? This way we have another sync and game loop in the game that makes creating them fun. Would add ease value to treasury by making keystones valuable as well as with people buying and selling them. Right now the keystones add 0 value with each transactions. Keystones were supposed to be rare and made on demand. Many people now can make them, and there's no chance of them being cornered on the market.
Those are all valid points. We are certainly watching the Keystone supply very closely, and I do think you can expect changes on that front from the design team. Um, from a from the perspective of the treasury and putting more Ethereum into the treasury, part of the reason to put keystones out there was to see, at what percentage rate they would get converted and new land would be minted. Clearly, with kind of where we're at such an early stage, pushing 125,000 corns, which we may hit today, what a huge milestone! That's that's mind blowing to me that's occurred. Um, win 1 billion is my comment to the community, though. 125K is awesome, but win 1 billion. So keystones, expect changes that tighten the output of those because, yeah, I agree. We've oversupplied the market. As with everything that we do, we put certain tests out. It's impossible to predict player behavior. And in this case, I don't think we saw as much new land minted as we expected. Very clearly, people are still trying to grow the size of their unicorn herds to kind of fully output the land that they had, and the roughly 5,000 or so lands that have been minted since we shipped the LVM are really just kind of the first start there. So I think that's great. I mean, I take this opportunity to give a massive shout out to Sam and DeBose who put together, I think, a really great tokenomics change proposal to the community that's currently in draft form on the governance portal. I really love ideas like that. I love community members taking them into their own hands, structuring them. First off, putting them in ideas, getting feedback from the wider community, and then you could see them kind of iterate on it and then put it live in the forum. I'm excited to see that one go and vote. This is a perfect example of, we're not going to affect the scales. I think it's pretty clear that we should let the community in this case, vote, what they feel should go forward. Things like these keystone questions, you could follow the same path those two guys did and put forward a proposal to reduce that. And so just making the point that it's wonderful to come in and ask these questions, and I do think we plan to make changes on it. But another avenue is always to kind of go through governance and say, hey, we think we should really tighten, pass a vote that says nope, keystones can only be crafted on the farm, and then obviously become tradable on the open market from there. That certainly adds more value to land. Ultimately, we want to add utility and value to land over time, right? So I think it's a great suggestion. I think we're likely to make changes. If you really want to see us make changes or even have something memorialized, I would put forward a proposal.
Yeah, I saw their proposal and it's clear that they really thought about it. I'm really happy about it. So it looks like Kaiser is out here doing his thing, and he's starting to
The one,
post
the only.
jousting tickets. Yes. So he's up here in general. He's starting to post tickets for jousting. Yes, we see you, Chief. Want to come over and say hi? So that's what we have for anonymous questions right now. For written questions, let's see. Yeah, since this was so sudden, I think we don't have written questions yet, but anybody is free to hop onto the stage. Say hi. Aw. Cannot. He has so much data to look through. I bet. So we can just continue to
Yeah, this
vibe from here.
probably is one of the largest pushes we've done in a very, very long time.
Yeah. It took me took the team like a couple of days to get that what's new in CU update out because at the very last moment there are also some things that we had to change. Yeah, it's a lot and I'm really excited for it. I'm looking forward to everybody's feedback once it's out. Kaiser's typing.
I can't believe with everything we've put out, there's not a question from the audience. So that forces me to, there we go. Sagarion, come on up, sir.
Send you an invite. Come on up. Hey, hi, Sag.
Hey guys,
Sir.
can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? So very exciting. We're kind of we've been waiting for this for a while, so I guess everybody's kind of hyped up on this right now. My question, I guess is about um, I asked this already in Founders Channel, but how will you guys cater to like the idea of like special maybe like if I wanted to play 1v1 with another player, or say we're streaming and we want to do just like a simple battle kind of thing between, you know, maybe the people viewing, like special kind of tournaments that can be set up by the player.
We've definitely talked about one-on-one tournaments. Part of what the product team will be doing is certainly looking at all the feedback during preseason and using that to plan future features for jousting. So 1v1 tournaments and things of that nature have been discussed, or things we're excited about. I think where it starts to step into a level of complexity, whereby we're a little bit just probably not wanting to put the time and effort around, is allowing people to structure their own tournaments in a far future. Anybody who's been really looking at like tribes and some of the concept sketches that we have for tribes, you um, almost, I mean, I'm pretty sure one of them has a jousting arena in it. So there's something very interesting there on a long-term roadmap of maybe allowing tribes to have their own arenas and things, and that would be a platform, Sagarion, for kind of what you're suggesting there. So it's definitely something we're interested in. I personally would love to see things more like permadeath or pink slip tournaments, which I think could be very interesting. But yeah, we're going to have to kind of weigh that versus all the other features and look at, how much are we going to layer on top of jousting versus, putting effort towards tribes or things like racing, etc. So it'll be a bit of a balancing act on that front, but specifically around 1v1, that is something that we talked about internally. And, we're currently planning for a future feature as a part of a jousting upgrade.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea where like basically it would cost us nothing to just like go 1v1 to test things out with each other and kind
Mhm.
of practice. So that would be kind of something that would be interesting to see. Um, the other thing I was wondering is when are you guys gonna do the streams of, I guess, some jousting tournaments? I know there was talks about this.
Plans in progress. Look out for announcements in the future. Sorry, I can't give you more info. But obviously, with Andrew in house and stuff now, we've got some plans on that front, and more announcements in the future.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Uh, that's really all I have. I'm just really kind of anticipating what's gonna come out in a couple hours, so looking forward to it.
Thank you for coming up. I'm pumped too. Again, it's been certainly the most anticipated release, I think, internally since we launched. So super, super excited to roll this out to the community. Um, it really should be this kind of massive improvement, both on the player experience front with the changes that have been made on the farm sim. RMP quick purchase is a really slick flow. And then, of course, jousting.
By the way, Sigarian, since you're here, I know like we usually ask Aaron questions, but I want to ask you a question. So are you going to stream jousting once it's out?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I
Uh,
love it.
I mean, it's been a while since I streamed, but there's only so much farming you can stream. But I think jousting would be the one thing that we can stream at any point, and it will be, I think, entertaining to watch and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that. By the way, for our next month of CCC, the Community Creator event, we're going to make jousting the theme. So if you want to sign up for it as a streamer, I think that would be great.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we do have a couple of other people who are wishing to speak. Hey, Goliath, come on over, please.
Hey, how are you? So I thought I would join the discussion since everybody's kind of quiet in that and ask a question from one of us lowly starter people. So I'm thinking like, so I haven't been in the community a lot. I mean, I'm new and I'm new to the game. Is the jousting with like so I get a beginner ticket and I got a couple beginner tickets. Am I going to be in a competitive space? I mean, is there an opportunity for somebody who's just literally just starting to kind of play the game and have fun and kind of go from there? So that's kind of my general question.
The way the tournaments are structured, particularly like beginner tournaments, as well as like stat requirements for the higher tournaments, it is our expectation that there will be a tournament in which just about any unicorn can be competitive in, right? That's not to say that any unicorn is going to win a top tier tournament, right? But particularly the tournaments that take beginner ticket as the entry fee, you should, right?
Sure.
One thing I would definitely encourage people to do, and it's one of the fun features the team has shipped, is just the ability to watch. You can watch any joust that has occurred. Um, so, if you're cautious and wanting to kind of see, just check out a few, watch them. You can view live in the top UI. You can look at the stats of each unicorn that's competing, right? You can look at the boosters and the stance. And so, anyone that's wanting to approach it a little more cautiously, I would just go and watch a few to conclusion, kind of begin to build out your mental map around. Um, you know, Here's my roster of unicorns. Here are the available tournaments, the various requirements to kind of enter those tournaments, and begin to make a plan around which corns you think will be best in what tournaments, and find a time to enter them and take a shot at it. But especially in the beginner ticket tournaments, like there really should be an opportunity for even kind of floor corn or farm corns to be competitive in those tournaments. Obviously, a corn that is competitive in a beginner tournament is likely way not going to be competitive in a top tier tournament. So, does that answer your question, Goliath?
Yeah, it does. And I guess the other thing too is that coming in new this, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in terms of the game. I've gotten a couple friends in. They're really enjoying what's going on in that. Look forward to the kind of help guide that we had talked about in that. I think that's going to be great. But now I'm starting to think, how do I unpack, the stats and the DNA and trying to figure out what's going on in there. And that's a whole other ball game. So kind of looking forward to diving into that and really kind of figuring that out. Obviously we all are. But yeah, I mean, so yes, it did answer my question and looking forward to kind of where things are going. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you coming up. One, you're drawing a little bit of an alpha leak out of me. We have a unannounced part. Well, I maybe have teased this before, but Breeder DAO is almost finished with a breeding dashboard specifically for our community, where you'll be able to see all of the gene data and a rough profile on where the stats are likely to land. So they've been working directly with our uh, data team to ingest all the kind of publicly available on-chain data to feed their dashboard. So be on
Okay.
the lookout in the next couple of weeks for a big announcement. We're going to be doing a lot of co-marketing on that front with them. And I'm really excited to kind of get that tool out for our community. And if you're really interested in beginning to optimize your breeding game, I definitely suggest going there first. And then
Okay.
over the next couple of releases, we're actually going to be updating the nursery player experience and UI so that we're surfacing those not just genes, but kind of the chance to roll genes, et cetera, et cetera. If you add evolutionary boosters and that kind of stuff. And so Breeder DAO tool first, and then in-game improvements to kind of help you make better decisions on the breeding front. So
That was
help
great.
is coming there. Also, I don't know if LG Jeff is here. He's been writing for a long time a breeding for newbies guide that I think will also be very helpful. I think the copy is close on that, and we need our wonderful graphic design team to whip up some graphics for it. But lots of stuff coming that you can, or content coming that you can kind of consume on that front to hopefully level up your breeding game on that front. Because you're calling out a key point, which is like if you don't have great stat unicorns, there is an opportunity to improve their stats over time, especially if you're maximizing the use of boosters. And we want to make sure we can kind of peel back the layers of depth for players and give them an on-ramp into that side of the experience. Because breeding in and of itself is a game, right? So
Yeah.
help is coming. Help is coming on that front. So hold on and definitely look out for announcements there. Okay.
And I think the thing is that it's like some of me and some of the new folks are so new into this that we're not sure what stats we're looking for. So I think getting into that will be great. The other thing too is that I want to let you know that the feedback I got from me and my gamer community is that the marketing that you all are doing is great. We appreciate all the discussions. I actually listened in on the discussion. I think it was today or yesterday, one of the two, where you had an interview and you were talking about basically, market and kind of like, that kind of thing with gaming and where things are going in that. And it's those types of things, honestly, that I think really energizes folks in this community in Web3 and it gives us an understanding of kind of where things are going, whether it be solid or not. At least we get a great idea in terms of the potential as to what's coming forward and that kind of thing, just as a community, just as a Web3 community. And the other thing too is that it's great to see projects talking to each other too, because in the end, I mean, we're fighting a very big monster in terms of these large gaming companies that have been around forever. And I think to get to the point where we need to all work together to kind of get there. So that's my 2 cents. So thanks.
I appreciate that feedback. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Goliath. And I'm glad that you think that way about our marketing. You worked really hard on it. And it makes me really happy to hear you say that. Okay, we have another person requesting to speak. We have Radama. Please come on over. Hey.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. Aaron, thank you for doing this. I really enjoy listening to these. I've been a member for about 2 months now and been grinding the hell out of it, so I really appreciate what you guys have done. I've kind of dug into the breeding to kind of segue from the last person that spoke. And when I look at the structure of the brackets for jousting tournaments, where you draw a line for, like, let's say endurance 250 or intelligence 250, I wonder if that number isn't exclusive enough, like it's too low. For some of the higher stat corns, that may specialize in attack and accuracy, they can still easily clear that 250 endurance or even 275 when you go to the higher brackets. Am I reading that wrong? Is that more exclusive than I see it to be? And if so, do you anticipate that going up?
Yeah, this is so I'm really happy to get this question. The way these tournaments are structured, we can, with a tuning update, which we usually do every other week, can immediately change any of the requirements, right? So we've kind of taken, I mean, we have a tool internally that just aggregates all the data. So we know the curve, the stack curve for every corn in existence, right? And the initial slices that the design team applied were, I would say, somewhat conservative, and this is specifically for preseason, right? And so as soon as we start to get real data against this, you can absolutely expect the tournament requirements to shift over time. So that is something. And one of the beautiful things about like we've been thinking a lot about like governance templates where it's like, hey, if you have an idea for a quest, like here's just a template to get it into governance and done, very quickly, right? Without a ton of hassle other than thinking about like inputs and outputs. And so very similar for that and other things. Like if you have a tournament type that you would like to propose, it'd be great to propose that. And obviously, if you propose a tournament type that's so small that only a few people can participate, it's not going to work, right? So I think what you're calling out is intentional design, the design team intentionally being a little bit conservative with these. But we will absolutely look at the data live and are very, very open and I would say highly likely to make changes both over the course of preseason as well as in the lead up to kind of the grand jousting tournament.
Oh, great. That was my question. Thank you.
Fantastic. I appreciate you coming up. Thank you. It's always good to hear from new community members.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming over. I do want to ask you something though. So once jousting goes live, do you have a specific strat that you want to try out? Or are we not saying so that other people won't know and they won't counter your strat? You can get a head
I know
start.
exactly right. Exactly. Honestly, I mean, I run a flower candy heavy class. It's just kind of the RNG that I got, back in the day when I got my 3 eggs in the initial cell and everything. And so, but I think I've said time and time again, my true love is the cloud class. Um, and I think I have one cloud class that's probably my fastest speed stat. I think I'm gonna throw that sucker in there with a high speed potion and I'm not gonna reveal my stance, but no, not necessarily. I think what I'm really excited about, I mean, a moment I had Tuesday that was pretty incredible is like that was the I haven't been in the play tests for quite some time as the team has been grinding them to, it's just been grinding to get this feature shipped. And Tuesday was, my chance to kind of join and check out the latest and greatest. And like I said before, it really is the best looking game I've ever contributed to. And I contributed a very, very tiny piece to it. Obviously, huge shout out to our entire team who's been working their asses off to get this over the line. But it was also the first time that I was able to watch the jousting tournament play out end to end and not immediately notice something like, oh, that particle effect isn't in, or oh, I know that's a stand-in or placeholder asset or something of that nature. And one of the worries I had when we were developing the feature in the design stage was like, are people going to enjoy kind of watching these time and time and time again? And the reality is, you don't necessarily have to if you don't want to. But I got genuine enjoyment out of the experience of watching the several jousts that we play tested internally. And just seeing the variety, like I got to witness my first double knockdown, which was super awesome, right? I think it was in the quarterfinals right before the finals. And so to see that happen and see one of them recover and one of them not get up, and then you had a true knockout. I mean, that kind of stuff and just the variety of the simulation, I think is like really very exciting. And as with everything we do, this to me is, obviously a first release, and now we have a sandbox that we can put, we have a foundation that we can build additional layers on top of, right? So I think there's a lot of ways to add even more variety over time that would just be more fun and exciting, right? But again, going back to Tuesday, I just sat there and I just genuinely enjoyed watching these play out. And I'm so excited to have some kind of like risk on the line. That'll just be a ton of fun. So I'm really looking forward to this rolling out. I think people are going to be just very excited. And like in doing your part as a community to kind of grow this IP, you now have something that is very, very shareable, whether it's the win animations, the walkout animations, the actual joust animations themselves. There's tons and tons and tons of content that you will be able to create with your own corns. And so I'd really like to encourage people to share as much as possible because I don't think there is another Web3 game in our category that competes with us. Certainly not that is actually live with a real working economy. So that in and of itself is kind of a moment that the farm sim never really gave us. Just because it's a farm sim, you can only make that so exciting, right? And jousting really has something to it that I think is very compelling and really, really shareable. And I think there will also be kind of funny moments when like the dopey kind of sad corn kicks the shit out of the super aggressive kind of aggro corn, right? And the huge shout out again to the art team and our wonderful animators who really knocked it out of the park. Like if you have, like I said, if you have the dopey or the sad unicorn, it kind of comes out very mopey. And so having seen these corns kind of from afar on the farm sim, the jousting experience is way more kind of intimate with these corns that you've been, seen time and time again, day in and day out. And now you're getting to experience them in a new way, and that was really special. I was really blown away by what the team has achieved here. And so let's use this moment as kind of a catalyst because now we have something that is very, very, very shareable and I think will generate excitement. So super, super pumped to see not just us on socials posting and sharing all this stuff, but seeing everything that everyone in our community goes out and shares. I'm super pumped for the first 128 tournament. That will just be kind of madness, and I'm really, really looking forward to hopefully having a corn that can participate in that. But that'll be an exciting moment. It'll be time. I think I would love to see us do more of these like kind of quick hit, not really even town halls. Just throw up a space. Let's live stream some of these larger tournaments, and let everybody kind of give each other shit when they win or lose or whatever happens. But it's fun. It's going to, again, this is kind of like us taking a huge step forward in the original thesis, which was like you build this very strong economic foundation in the farm sim itself, and then you socket in these battle loops over time. And to have jousting coming now, a massive April planned with the launches of the Team RPG playtest, coupled with Unicorn Party, which is another real-time PvP skill-based game. Like we've got some. I mean, it's just there's a lot of catalysts here, and I'm super excited to finally be in this moment with jousting today for sure. Kind of being the first domino to fall. Mitch has had his hand up. Let's get Mitch up here.
Hey, Mitch, come on over, please. Oh, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Maybe do you have your device on mute or something? Because you're not muted on Discord. If you're expecting some problems with tech, you can check it out and then you can just come back. In the meantime, I'm gonna take a look at chat. Kaiser is out here sharing potions alpha in general. He's somehow found out the percentage for each potion's boost. Oh boy. All right, we have a couple other questions. So while we're waiting for Mitch B, let's see. Brooke is asking, will there be max stats limited matches? For example, for some of us who has normal stat unicorns can fight easier and more equal. So we focus to strategy and tactics to win.
Yes, in the initial tuning pass, we chose to make the requirements, like a min requirement. We can just as easily make it a max requirement. I can't guarantee that that's going to happen in preseason, but again, this was kind of what we chose to start with. But the flexibility in our ability to tune tournaments with just about any requirement that across stats or class or mythic tier, etc., is possible, right? So all of this with a tuning update. So all of that is possible, of interest, and I would say nearly 100% likely to occur. I just can't guarantee it's over preseason. You may have to wait until the grand jousting tournament at that point. We're also thinking about the new bond ramp. I mean, Goliath kind of came up and asked that. Like, there's several ways to maybe create very specific kind of like beginner, or not even beginner, like truly noob tournaments that could be very interesting, and ways to smooth the on ramp into the experience. I also think just the fact that you can watch any of the tournaments without entering a corn, without even having any of our assets, I think is a really wonderful feature, because now you've got this opportunity to kind of watch before you buy. So definitely that's something that players can expect in the future, but maybe not for preseason.
All right. Yeah, the community is overflowing with really creative match requirements. So NFT Gibby suggested a jousting deathmatch style tournament. So like 8 corns enter, only 1 exits. Spicy. We have another one by FPD, like a maiden race. So a race that can only be entered by unicorns with 0 wins. So I guess once you win, you can't enter that anymore. That's very interesting. Glide has a question: what is the penalty when you lose for jousting? I mean, there's no penalty, but like
Your
everybody's
ticket,
winning.
well, your there's no penalty, but you do forfeit your entry, right? So tickets
Mhm.
are burned or consumed, and then obviously, if there was RBW at stake, that stake is redistributed to the winners. These are 90-10 loops, as we call them. So 10% of the kind of RBW pooled in the tournament goes into the treasury. But yes, it's energy. It's the stuff that you put at stake. Down the road, I would love to see things like permadeath or pink slip tournaments. There's a lot of work that would involve, and so maybe one day. Cool.
That's some Squid Games type stuff. Squid corns.
100%.
No.
Wait till everybody sees the Rainbow Rumble update.
Uh-oh. Oh, we have Cora here asking, is jousting the one where you can enter with a gray horse? What? If so, will it be available in pre-season? Jousting is
They
the
are mixing up. I think I know what they're talking about, though. So in Unicorn Party, you can play for free with a gray, ugly-looking horsey, which we thought would be very fun and kind of poke fun at some of the horse-specific projects, because we have unicorns, and unicorns are awesome, right? So you just can't beat a unicorn. But Unicorn Party, which will launch on WebGL in the browser, as well as on Android, is going to have a free to try on ramp that will let you kind of play with a gray horsey. So that's going to be kind of the initial test at, okay, let's see how a free to try kind of on ramp works, and do we see any conversion to paid with that. More to come once we start to kind of understand what the data is, or once we see what the data is showing us on that front.
all
But
right.
jousting will not allow you to play without a real corn. You can watch them day in and day out, but if you want to enter, you're going to need to pick you up a corn.
Okay. I just want to check back
I
in.
missed a thing too, which I
Yeah.
forgot. And thank you to LG Corbin. Straight losers for now during preseason are also being given a gift box as a consolation prize, which is going to give you a chance at a ticket back, maybe a few other fun things. So just to make it extra friendly for people early on, and encourage people to try and see how they do and experiment with their corns. Because at the end of the day, you're never going to be certain. If you were certain, it wouldn't be fun. So the gift boxes, I think, is a great idea from the design team. Exactly, Goliath, my man. A soft lose is a good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to check in on Mitch V real quick. We good? We still can't hear you. If you'd like, you can type
Anticipation
out your
builds.
the suspense. Martin, oh, can you guys hear him? Oh no, is my Discord cursed? Okay, so half the gang says yes, they can hear him, and half the gang says no. Yeah, Discord is being interesting right now. Okay, let's get Mitch back in. Hey, Chief.
All right, let's try this again. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Hey, I thought it was my device playing up, so I switched like 3 different devices. I'm like, what is going on? But no, that's good. We
We
made
can hear
it.
you now. It's all good. All is
Perfect.
forgiven.
Victory.
Amazing. So yes, hello everyone. I'm very excited about jousting today. Obviously, being part of the community very closely for the last year. Yeah, it's very exciting just to see this next game mode finally coming out. I'm sure that I speak on behalf of the community when I say that. And I just also want to acknowledge the hard work that everyone on the team has put in. Obviously, we're not just building a game, we're building a game on Web3, and relatively it's uncharted territory, right? So I think we're all very, very excited to be part of this next release and build jousting into the great vision that you guys have created. And so with that, it kind of brings me to my question, and that is, with this pre-season launch of jousting, is there going to be any integration with, let's say, lore? Because the way I see it is that jousting is basically preparation for the great Shadowcorn battle, and I'm curious if there's going to be any sort of prompts or anything in this first edition of jousting that's going to kind of build that hype and communicate that lore.
Great question, and thank you for the kind words. Again, I get to stand up here and talk, and I know some of the team is here listening to that, and it's wonderful to hear some kind words. Again, everybody's been working their ass off to deliver something that I think is really top tier and puts us in a position to kind of take our rightful place at the forefront of the space. That's been our goal from the beginning, and I very much view the release of Jousting again as this massive step forward in our the thesis we kind of began with, and an opportunity again to kind of the first domino, I guess. I like that. The first domino to fall with Team RPG playtest and Unicorn Party next month. To your question, lore. So Zaori, the one and only Zaori, aka Andrew Campbell, who's joined our team recently. I guess he's coming up on his second full week here. He's really taken ownership over lore going forward, and will be working and kind of taking the original content that the players were generating for as a part of the Throwing Shade minigame, and using that as kind of the foundation to build out our backstory and ultimately kind of like a content Bible. Content Bible's not the right way of doing it or saying it. More of an executive summary. One of the things when we've looked at and talked to various groups, like Gotham Group down in Hollywood, around taking the IP and beginning to look at things like comics and TV shows and even one day maybe a movie. They're always like, well, give us the brief, right? Give us the story. And I had always been very vague in crafting the backstory, and team members like LG James have added a lot of kind of fun lore over time. But at the end of the day, we really wanted the community to build this. So it starts with the Dark Forest, the Shadowcorn Unicorn conflict, and really building out the world history. But I think you're absolutely right, Mitch, that we will look at ways to incorporate things like jousting and racing into the overall lore and fiction that we're building. So this is a major initiative for us this year. I think I've long looked at particularly Forgotten Runes and Wizards Cult as a good example of community-owned IPs or community-driven IPs really being really leveraging player-generated content, right, to flesh out the world fiction, and we absolutely want to do that. So no, I appreciate the question. It's definitely something that's top of mind. The one and only Zaori is kind of heading it up internally for us, and beyond kind of even the current event that's ongoing, right? I guess I should say the current event is the first of many.
Awesome. Very excited for that. And I guess my second question is there any way to identify who I'm versing in jousting, like apart from just their wallet ID? Because I would think it's pretty cool to have bragging rights, knowing that you've just beaten some, like, for example, maybe my unicorn defeats yours, Aaron, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I kicked Aaron's ass. Like, is there any way for me to know that?
Not in the current version. We have a larger update around a feature, I think, on the roadmap that's called the player profile. We've partnered with Lens Protocol already. Community members have been able to go and claim their lens handle. The idea is to leverage that as effectively the player profile or player identity within our game, right? So if your lens profile happens to be something that would identify you as XYZ individual in Discord, that's going to be kind of the feature. So the player profile is what we're thinking about there is obviously a way to aggregate all the badges and things that you've won, and avatar system that we teased with the Roadshow deck around kind of these cute little gummies that are in the audience cheering these jousting matches on. So once that feature is done, a component of it is the ability to kind of pass the lens handle in. And over time, we've been asked this question, like, there are obviously a lot of projects trying to build social graphs in this space. And so the idea that, maybe we allow or integrate with unstoppable domains or other projects in the space, right? So it's not necessarily a lens only thing. But I'm a huge fan of Aave in general. Obviously, we really like Aavegotchi and what they've done over there. And the Lens protocol is just kind of another thing out of that ecosystem that I think is very cool and something that we're really happy to have partnered with. But as far as like identifying who you're going up with, you're going to have to wait till the player profile, and it's effectively that Lens protocol integration, which is the first step there.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's good to know that something like that is on the in the works.
Yeah, that'll add a lot of fun. I completely agree with the sentiment of like, oh man, I just went up against, it'll be me and I'll be getting shit on in these tournaments, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, you got a target on your back arrow already.
Exactly. Yeah. I might need to change my lens handle.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. Look, that's all the questions I had. So yeah, good luck with today, everyone, and really keen to test out this jousting build.
Thanks a ton for coming up, Mitch.
Thank you so much, Mitch. We really appreciate your time. Goliath is asking, if we're not into lens, should we be considering it?
Yeah, so Lens is kind of doing a weird rollout where you have to effectively get your wallet whitelisted. And we did a snapshot with our community that allowed anyone at that time to get whitelisted. It's on the to-do list. It's a very simple thing we just need to kind of ping them again to get that done. I wonder if Christina is here, and if she is, she can take a note of that. But we just need to ping them, take another snapshot that would update to include any new crypto unicorn holders, and that would be and allow any of them to go and claim their lens handle for free. I'm a big fan of what that ecosystem is building. I think a decentralized kind of social graph is one of the legitimate use cases for the technology we're all built on top of. And so it's really cool what they're doing. And I think rather than try to build our own siloed identity system, the ability to kind of leverage the Lens ecosystem as a starting point, I think is great. And once you have a Lens profile, you can use all of the social apps. I think there's over a dozen now at this point. So very, very interesting, very, very cool group, and I'm happy to have partnered with them.
Super exciting. Okay, let's see if we have a couple more questions. Oh, chat has spiraled into a lot of discussion. While we were talking Zesty Beans analogy, Andy paid chat a visit by typing briefly and then not chatting at all. I guess that's the way of saying hi. Okay.
I can see at least Zesty in the room. There's smiles, so that usually indicates things are going all right.
Nice. Okay, next up we have Kaiser. Hey, how was your data searching exploits?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of data. I think there's a lot of things to process here. uh, yeah, it's amazing. Right now I'm just stumped. Okay, I have just some few questions about, because I've seen the potions, the percentages. I've seen like the effects on. There's so many stuff. But anyway, about the potions, is it affecting the base stats? If, for example, the base stat of a unicorn, or is it like, for example, on my screen it shows 1,000, and then does it increase that 1,000, or just increase like the portion for that percentage?
If the stat is, let's say, the speed stat, and you have like a 230 speed stat, you have a 10% boost, you should expect 230 plus 23, right?
Oh,
So
okay,
that's how it's
cool.
working. Yeah. So you're going to always want to pair a booster. Well, you could, there's kind of two strategies as I see it. I'm sure there's a billion that the players ever, the community will come up with. But one that I find really interesting is just like, take a potion that's going to boost the best stat and just really double down on that.
Mm-hmm.
Or take a potion that's going to boost the lowest stat, right? So you may have a real
To
high
balance
speed,
it
low
out.
endurance corn, right? And then go over there and boost the endurance to try to bring it up to speed. Because you'll find like speed is one thing, and you might have a corn that's very fast that gets the speed boost, which is kind of that like red or blue scene that occurs during their run up in the jousting sim. But they may miss, right, if they don't have good accuracy, right? So it is very
Correct.
much kind of a balance. And you take some risk if you just boost the best stat, where you probably could have, buffed a stat that was low on the corn to kind of bring it up to
Mhm.
par, if that makes sense.
I see. Actually, what I'm thinking right now as a strategy, this is just my personal thought. If, for example, I have a cloud corn that has a very high accuracy, I can just amp up the power and I can just start hitting. But again, you have the intelligence and the endurance portion of it too. So I'm
Mhm.
seeing a lot of things, but maybe I cannot promise yet, but maybe we can create a calculator for this based from the what I'm seeing. If it's really a direct
Oh
base stat,
boy.
I think it will be a good thing.
Oh man.
Next
Yeah, we'll
question.
see how quickly you guys can derive the algorithm, and then we'll have to change it. That's
um,
very funny. It should be possible. I mean, the data warehouse is going to give you guys a lot of great data, right? And anyone
hmm,
interested in really digging into that, like there is a lot of depth and chances. And quite frankly, it drove our engineering team crazy to build the complexity of the sim. But as
mhm.
with all things, complexity leads to depth, and depth is a good thing, I think. I think that's one of our theses that has proven to be true. And jousting definitely reinforces that. So if you have a strategy and it fails, you should really kind of look and make more tests. And it's one of those things like you might be sitting on great corns and a shitload of advanced tickets. Like I might recommend running some beginner tournaments to start, right? And feel
Yes.
it out a little bit. It's obviously going to be a little interesting, right? So when jousting opens up today, you're going to see a queue of 8 available tournaments. They're going to have a certain total number of corns per tournament, and
Mhm.
it's first come first serve, right? The number of corns entered in the tournament updates in near real time, so you'll kind of see that number count up. But yeah, immediately, I wouldn't recommend necessarily aping in immediately to a specific tournament in the queue. I would look at the requirements, look at what you have. You're going to have these wonderful stat filters to help you immediately in your inventory filter your corns by stats to begin to determine, you know,
Which one you
which
want?
ones you
Yeah,
have that are, yeah, exactly.
correct.
And so I would kind of recommend maybe taking a little bit of time to build a bit of a strategy and then begin to test it right before you ape into an advanced tournament and burn one of those tickets. Or maybe you get super lucky, and I'm going to hear about this on Twitter later, which would be fantastic. So either way, pick your poison, or pick your risk tolerance.
Okay. I have a second question. Maybe this is an idea. I don't know if it's on the feature already, but if you play like mobile games like Mobile Legends and all those, they have a share button after the game. I was wondering if there's an option for us to share, since it's web, right? If there's a share button on the match where we can share it on Facebook, Instagram, or yeah, we may have like streamers, but if we ourselves wanted to share on our social media, then we can get more. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? And maybe if there is a share button, is there one?
There is not a share button, but there are a lot of browser extensions that would make that very easy. So I would recommend picking one of those because that would certainly be easier than us implementing that feature in game. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, there is a enormous amount of, I would say, kind of shareable content that really should be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I highly recommend picking one of the browser extensions because there's a bunch that you could choose from that would facilitate that.
Awesome. I hope the CM team can provide us information so we can also, I mean, as a regular player, we can stream and share it to Facebook. I think that would be a great, it's not like like a streamer thing, but as a marketing thing, it provides self-awareness to at least to social media. I think that's my questions for now. I think I have more, but I think this is my questions for now. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming up, Kaiser, and as always, digging into the data. You're first to the data, as we say internally. So
You're welcome, sir.
continue leaking all the juicy bits to the community.
Man, I love it.
Always happy to be here, man. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Kaiser.
so much for your time, Kaiser. Have a great day.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye. Okay. So, Cora has a really interesting question. Has the jousting entry been stress tested for a large number of entries concurrently?
We have run bot testing on our side, but we'll see. We'll see.
Chad, is this
I'm
for
looking back
Shadow?
at our engineers. Yeah, we definitely did some bot testing in the lead up to this. Obviously, we know what our concurrent player amount is, and even with a pretty significant spike, we know what that would be. And so, we feel reasonably confident. You may have situations where if a ton of people are aping into, like, let's say an 8 unicorn tournament, you may try to put a unicorn in there and it'll just say, oh, this tournament's already filled, right? So go back to the queue, go back to the queue. If we run into an issue where there's so much player liquidity that you're having trouble getting into the 8 that are available, because again, the way the queue works, there's a queue of 8. When a tournament fills, it immediately kicks off. You can choose to watch it live if you would like. You can come back after it's over and watch it, or just claim your rewards. It doesn't really matter. You can kind of pick your poison there. But when one fills and kicks off, another one enters the queue. So you always roughly 8 tournaments that are available. As we see concurrent players scale, we will tune that. We'll basically retune it so there's more in the queue, right? But we didn't want so many in the queue that they weren't filling quickly. So that's probably the thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, is we just don't know how many people concurrently are going to be kind of entering these things. So we just took a guess based on the data that we currently have. But it's a very quick tuning push. And the design team is kind of prepared to make that adjustment if we need to add more tournaments to the queue, right? So there's just more available tournaments to pick from at any one point in time. So do not panic if we have the great problem of so many people trying to fill these tournaments that you're having trouble getting into them. We can pretty quickly make an adjustment that would increase the number in the queue and solve that problem. So.
All right. Cora's pretty smart. I'm gonna make sure to keep asking Cora things. That's something nice to bring up in front of them. Okay. Let's see if we have other questions. Cora out here with the eye emoji. Is there an insta win button? I need that. You and me both, Chief.
Buy the best possible corn, put the best possible boosters on it, pick your stance, and roll the dice would be the only quote unquote pay to win way to do it, and no guarantees that way either. So yeah, no pay to win.
Yeah, even if you had the best corn, like what if your enemy has like plot armor and underdog buffs? Yeah, that's just unbeatable.
I mean, it is interesting. There's a lot of variety, right? You know, if it was fully if it was 100% stat based, it would be no fun, right? So the
Mhm.
RNG component is very important. The sim is incredibly complex. That was probably definitely a frustrating thing for our engineers, but they pulled it off. Maybe they should stop pulling off miracles, and product will stop asking for miracles. So I think it will be very hard to figure out a strategy that is going to win 100% of the time. We haven't done our job if it's very easy to develop a strategy that's just going to win 100% of the time. So always expect to take risk going into these jousting tournaments, right? It's part of the game.
It really is part of the game. So it's time to pay attention to our beloved RNGesus. Prepare your offerings, because luck will play a very big part. Well, not really very big, but it will play a part, definitely. Okay, we have a question from Unix144. Will there be timeout for unicorns after the tournament? Because it might be likely that top unicorns would overpopulate beginner tournaments.
If we see that kind of behavior going, we'll put, instead of min requirements, we'll do max requirements. Obviously, you can do that, but you're not winning anything. You're just being an ass. And so if we see that behavior, we'll obviously retune to block that kind of behavior. Right now, we want you, if you really have a great corn, you want to keep entering it, great, keep spending berries to consume energy. And you either have a massive farm out to support that yourself, or you're buying berries from the RMP from other people, right? So that kind of behavior right now, we're okay with. I think a KPI for us is I want to see the number of tournaments per day run increase over time, right? That's a meaningful stat for all of us. And we'll see the treasury accumulate RBW maximally. So the more tournaments we run, the more RBW we take off the open market. So that's great, right? And that's definitely a KPI there. So if you have a great corn and you want to just blast it through a bunch of tournaments, I hope you have the berries. Otherwise, you're buying those berries, and I think that benefits the economy. So that kind of behavior right now, I think, is fine. If we see spammy behavior in the beginner tournaments, which again, if you have a really good corn, you're wasting your time in a low tier tournament. We can flip the requirement to a max requirement. So it's something we'll be observing. If you guys notice that behavior, let's shame the player that's doing it. And we can obviously make tuning changes to fully prevent that if necessary. But that was something we saw early on. Again, the risk to reward is just really not there. You're wasting your effort and time not putting that corn in a tournament a higher tier tournament where it can be more competitive and obviously win more rewards. So that kind of behavior is definitely more troll-like. And if we detect it, we'll make changes and obviously shame whoever it is in the community.
Yeah, guys, that wouldn't be very gamer of you. We all gamers here, man.
Well, it's a situation of pick on somebody your own size, right?
Yeah, that's not very gamer though. Okay, let's see. Sigurin is asking how much initial seed of the potions and tickets were added to the RMP?
I know the answer to that, but I'm not sure we've ever revealed the amount of liquidity. I guess you guys could use the Uniswap curve and get it. So there's 100K tier 1 potions and beginner tickets, 75K tier 2 potions and intermediate tickets, and 50,000 tier 3 potions and advanced tickets. We are modeling the liquidity, the initial liquidity, similar to I fucked up. So that's the RBW value. So that's the RBW paired against the quantity, not the quantity. I wanted the quantity, LG Corbin, but that's fine. My misinterpretation. You'll find out. but we did model it very similar to the boosters. So you can expect pretty high volatility. If people are sitting on a bunch of tickets and think we're going to dump a ton of RBW into those liquidity pools, so you can just sell those tickets and drive the price down, like, well, first off, you're making it cheaper for a new player to get a new ticket. So not a disaster, but we're also not going to sit a whole chunk of liquidity over there for y'all to dump on, is I guess how I would put it.
All right. Okay. We do have a question for the data warehouse. What data can we expect the data warehouse to have regarding jousting? Just overall stats or specific unicorn stats, including stances chosen, potions used on which races, etc. Trying to gauge the depth of the data that we can expect.
I'm going to wait on the answer, and I will tell you it's 1,800 and 600 actual bundles paired with the liquidity I mentioned earlier, the RBW that I mentioned earlier. So that very specifically answers the liquidity question. Trying to, again, model it similar to boosters, you would expect very high volatility until those prices even out after we see the initial round. It's been a long time since we've added RMP liquidity. So yeah, that's going to be kind of fun to see how that plays out. The war in the RMP will occur tonight. Who will win? Stay tuned.
Dun dun dun.
Being told that the data warehouse will get updated over time, but we're testing data first before we release all of those metrics. But the metrics that were mentioned, you will have access to in the data warehouse, just not immediately today. We couldn't land that update simultaneously. Well, we need prod, actual production data, to validate that the warehouse itself is getting the data correctly. So give us a little bit more time to get that done, and then we'll push an update to the data warehouse that will include all of that. Because whoever asked the question, it's a very good point. You need to know all of that information to really begin to strategize, and we do absolutely plan to get you that information.
All right. Another one, is the idea of community-owned jousting stadiums still alive, where we could build them together by sacrificing materials for a percent rake?
When I mentioned earlier kind of the long-term tribes roadmap and the idea that tribes could potentially have jousting arenas, like if you've read through that documentation, there's a concept sketch that includes kind of what that would look like, our LOD3 as it were. So yes, that's still something that we are actively thinking about and believe would add a lot of value to the experience over time, is to like actually allow these tribes true kind of ownership over these arenas. And then the question is, do we give them control to what the queue of tournaments and structure would be and entry fees and all that kind of stuff? And all that's extra work, and we have to balance what's really meaningful in there. So it's a great idea. It is something we're thinking about and considering for the long-term jousting roadmap, especially as it relates to tribes, because we're really interested in creating long-term things that tribes can kind of grind towards. And yeah, in the past, I'd mentioned an idea where tribes are basically contributing materials to ultimately build these arenas, right? And then potentially getting a benefit from that. So love those ideas. It's definitely something that we are thinking about on the long-term roadmap.
All right, love it. Okay, we have a speaker coming in, NFT Giddy. Hey, please come on over. Hi. Uh-oh. If you're talking, Chief, we're not able to hear you. So there might be something wrong with your Wait, can you guys hear him? Yep, okay, so some part of chat can't hear you too. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, once. Okay, there we go. Let's try that again.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hey.
Awesome. Thanks for having me up. First off, just thank you to the team for all of your hard work. The size and shows how hard the team has been working in the background and just kind of working in silence. So especially those basement dweller team members that never get any, gratification. Thank you very much to them and everybody for what you're doing. It's
Thanks
exciting
for
to
the shout
see
out.
where we started and where we're at now. It's very much a night and day difference. So first question, kind of pivoting a little bit away from jousting. Now that we have this major feature, win next thing, is there any insight into when we'll see the Shadowcorn roadmap? And not necessarily timelines on when things will be rolled out, but I know you mentioned before, Aaron, that you were going to get kind of a grand plan for Shadowcorns in front of us so we could really see what that whole vision is.
Yeah, the product and art teams have been working very hard to establish that roadmap. Obviously, we've been very focused the last few weeks on jousting, and so with the ship of jousting this week, we need to do one more kind of mega planning meeting, in particular with engineering, to get buy-in, because we don't want to pitch a feature that necessarily is not going to be possible, or obviously would be too difficult. But in tandem, again, product and art have been collaborating to both put together the copy that basically outlines what that vision is for tribes and how Shadowcorns are kind of foundational to that feature, as well as concept art images to help sell that vision to the community. Rubik came up. Oh, Rubik is here. Welcome, Rubik. Came up, I don't know, I guess at the last town hall, maybe the town hall before, and he kind of asked, like, what's the carrot for players who are like kind of hitting the end of the farm progression? They've got level 10 land and stuff, and that's very, 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 very few players today. But of course, over time, more and more people get up there, and tribes and the Shadowcorn roadmap and everything that we're trying to do there is really designed to pivot the farm sim from this solo infinite progression farm sim with a crazy economy simulator in the form of the RMP into a cooperative kind of PvE PvP experience, right? Very similar to, I mean, we refer to it as 4X Lite. We have spent a good chunk of our careers in the game space in the 4X strategy genre. We know it pretty well. We certainly know the challenges that come along with building in that space and live operating a game in that space. And so we've been thinking again about ways through tribes and Shadowcorns to begin to kind of pivot it towards a mid and elder game experience that players are going to go, I see where that's going. I see why, I'm going to want to compete in that arena going forward. And so timeline wise, towards the end of this month into April is when we're planned. I think I gave a commitment last time by the end of March. I want to make sure the team has the time that they need to get the sign off so that we put forward something that doesn't need to change. So if that stretches into April, I'm not going to stress it because we have plenty of other stuff going on with Team RPG launch. And of course, Unicorn Party towards the end of the month. So that's the rough timeline in FT Gibby. And I'm excited to get that out there. I think, Shadowcorns was a thing that was an idea in December of 2021, and in just about 30 days we shipped, actually it was less than 30 days, we shipped the Dark Forest Act 1, and it really just kind of came out of this silly idea of like, we don't have a bad guy yet, right? So what is our bad guy going to be? And I'll admit, and I think we got into a little bit of trouble with trying to deliver on too many fronts last year. And the Shadowcorn roadmap was the thing that, we kind of put on the back burner. And so the commitment here and really what we've been working hard towards is to solidify what that vision is so the community can take that and understand where we're headed. And so I'm very, very excited kind of for town halls in April when that has been revealed. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and there's definitely going to be a shitload of questions that come out of that. But I do think everybody's going to be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to it. And you kind of answered this next question, or you may not be able to reveal anymore. But are Shadowcorns really going to be kind of their own loop in and of themselves, or only paired with tribes, or will we see them interact with jousting and racing and the other loops that are going to be released as well?
Right now, the focus is on tribes, and tribes, of course, kind of encapsulates the farm sim. Tribes is really layers on top of the farm sim. So that's the focal point for now. Shadowcorns are very big. Like that's kind of the fiction, right? So I don't really know how they would joust with. I mean, they maybe just step on a unicorn, right? um, so no, for now it really is focused very much on tribes and things. But in the wacky wild world of unicorns, anything is possible, right? Is kind of what I would say. Might be some fun like jousting raid boss events or something that we could do. So not currently planned, definitely focused on deeply integrating them into the kind of tug of war and competitive nature of tribes. Long term, maybe we take a look at fun ways to kind of integrate them into some of the other loops.
We roll out the deathmatch arena or jousting battles. We could have the Shadowcorns eat the losers.
Exactly, just full Mad Max style. Maybe it's Shadowcorn v Shadowcorn. I didn't really consider that, right? Like maybe that is the joust. The arena would have to get a lot bigger, especially if you started to, as players begin to send their Shadowcorns and things. So that could be pretty cool. I know our art director Bo would love to work on the effects around two Shadowcorns duking it out. I can imagine this. Anyway, I'm saying a bunch of things that add work to the team that's already worked very hard to push this update. So I'm going to shut up. But great question.
Last question is around the Team RPG playtest that's coming up. So there's 2 prototypes that the community is going to get a test and vote on. Is the end goal that both of these modes are going to be launched, but we're just simply voting on what gets done first? And if not, why put in all of the initial work to do 2 different modes, and how much is that potentially costing us development dollar-wise? What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, Team RPG is very important to me because it represents all of our game loops sit on one side you have pure RNG, on one side you have pure skill, right? And our game loops all set on, that spectrum, right? And Team RPG to me is should be the closest to pure skill, or at least something that we could build an esports pillar around. So it's very important to me that we get that game right. And in a kind of competitive and somewhat crowded space, even within just Web3 games, I really wanted the opportunity to build with the community and try to. I mean, we've kind of seen with some of our competitors recently, like they launch a thing and it does not have a great reception. And we ourselves have experienced that occasionally with features. And so this to me was an opportunity to really embrace community feedback very early in the development cycle to ultimately vote on which one wins and which one the core game team builds. So this Team RPG playable prototype was not built by the Laguna team. It was built by the wonderful Altitude team based in the Philippines. That's actually Gabby, the founder of YGG's kind of studio, game studio that he ran prior to starting YGG. And it was they're an incredible team and they're very cost effective. So, we're talking in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars to get these 2 playable prototypes. Both of those playable prototypes, I think, are a lot of fun. And it will be exciting to kind of get feedback and then ultimately, via governance vote, kind of determine which one is our Team RPG game. Now, if they're both just so radically fun and awesome, like maybe down the road, we ultimately end up doing both. But for now, the attempt that we're making here is to let's really play test this with the community and let them make the ultimate choice on what we invest our time and resources on. So the opportunity to get out early on such on a feature that is kind of at the end of the current roadmap, get real playtest data and ultimately kind of decide on what direction we're headed. I just thought was a really phenomenal opportunity. Like the thing that's really unique about this space is you don't in mobile free to play get these very engaged communities like we see in Web3, and I'd certainly put ours at the top of the list of communities in the space in terms of engagement, around this IP. And so, yeah, I mean, the opportunity to really lean into that with these playable prototypes, run tournaments against them, let the community kind of fight for the one that they believe in most is going to be very exciting. And I'm definitely curious to see how it kind of plays out. And this is all part of the kind of grand plan on the second party side where, we did all the legwork to kick off these initial deals. We're obviously funding them out of the treasury. The hope is, I think I mentioned this before, we've built a lot of underlying infrastructure now, a separate game bank for second party games, a separate CMS pipeline where a team can basically pull down the unicorns as they exist in our game, right, without having to rebuild that pipeline themselves. So we've built a lot of stuff that we haven't really talked about that forms a nice foundation for us to be able to hopefully build, again, this whole second and eventually third party ecosystem of games, right, that interoperate with each other via these game banks, the game bank infrastructure that we have, coupled with leaderboards and all of that stuff, right? So yeah, I really want this to be a signal to other developers in the space, especially if we start to have more and more success, which we all hope, that brings additional developers to the table that say, oh, I would love to build XYZ game loop, right, with the unicorn assets, right? So did that answer your question or any follow-ups on that?
Yeah, that does answer it. And kind of one follow-up is, what is the incentive for, a third-party studio to do just that, to take our IP and build a game out of it? Do they need to create a community proposal and get paid from the treasury? Or would they be allowed to, charge $1.99 for somebody to come play this Crypto Unicorn IP game? Or what does that look like?
I mean, our preference is certainly that they come to the DAO and they request, funding and marketing support from the DAO itself, right? It would certainly benefit to have our design team very closely work with them from the economy's perspective, right? And we're really interested in making sure that every loop, almost every loop, Unigotchi is kind of very much designed to just be kind of a toy and a fun thing for people to use to show off their unicorns, to interact with their unicorns in new and kind of fun ways, just trying to, again, flesh out this wonderful IP that we have. But yeah, our preference is you come directly to the DAO, you say, I want to build this game loop. LG, we would look to the community to say, do you want that game loop? The community votes it through, great. Now we'd look to work very closely with them to give them the tools that we've built for these current studios so that they can very quickly get the unicorns at the fidelity that we would expect. And again, have a way to interoperate with the game economy. I mean, the grand scheme is, especially if we see traction with these 90-10 loops, there would be a very strong incentive there to split that portion with the developer, right? So that they maybe get development funding to get it to market and then have this share in the upside via the RBW token rake or tax that's being applied on that loop. And I really love mechanisms like that just because it creates a scenario in which obviously the developers that build a game loop that people really like to play are going to get more reward as a result of the taxes that they pull on that loop, right? So that would be our preference. Obviously, given the IP rights and stuff that we assign out, like you could make a game completely separate of our systems that utilizes our NFT assets and even the fungible tokens if you really wanted to, right? And I think to me that's still exciting. It's not as compelling just because we really, I think, want each game loop to interoperate, add value, and economic depth to the overall economy. One project that I've been following very closely is Treasure DAO. I'm sure many of you know about them or may not, may have already played some of the games. I think what the Treasure DAO ecosystem is trying to build with obviously a bunch of completely different IPs is similar to what we're trying to do, but with one IP, right? And a dream that I have is that, years from now, we have many unicorn games. Some maybe had a moment of success and fell flat. Others are being, live operated for years and years and years on end and stuff. And so again, when I look at the Treasure DAO ecosystem, I'm like, that's kind of what we've been building from the beginning, just with one IP and not a bunch of different cartridges, as they kind of call it, right? They're trying to be the Nintendo of this space. We're trying to build maybe the Mario of the space, right? So we really hope to see more developers raising a hand and saying, I want to build games and tools for the Crypto Unicorns ecosystem. I think especially if we start to see some real growth in the next 6 months, that's going to be a big focus for us, is expanding our second and third party aspirations.
Yeah, I know that's an exciting part of the IP that I keep thinking about is how flexible it is to add more games and loops. Last quick question. Have you been approached privately by any developers or any studios inquiring about doing just that?
We have. There's a group called Volt Games. They're actually going to be out here in SF next week for GDC. They have a kind of football game that they already kind of had like a unicorn skin for the football players and stuff. And I was like, that's cool, but I sure would love to see the real quadruped unicorns running around in that game. So yeah, they're one that comes to mind. There have been a few others that have suggested partnerships. I'm actually pretty close to the CEO of Gamey, which is another big gaming project built on top of Polygon. They got acquired by Animoca. But no, we would love to see more. I think any opportunity to expand the IP, so long as it's a developer that we can trust to uphold the quality bar that we have, is a really good opportunity, I would think.
Awesome. I know you probably feel a certain obligation to, speak to the community and keep this communication flow open, but I do really appreciate you taking the time to do these town halls and to answer these questions and to just give us this direct line to you. It's very appreciated. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming up.
All right, thank you so much, Vivi. Okay, so I'm taking a look at the rest of chat. It looks like we don't have any other questions. Yeah, I think we're good. Oh wait,
I saw Rubik's hand, so let's
the man,
come up and let's
the man,
do it.
Thomas,
Let's
a
do it.
legend.
Then I'm back to the war room to sweat it out with the team.
G'day.
Rubik, sir, you have the floor. It's not
Can you
the
hear me?
middle of the night your time, so look at that.
Yay!
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it was 9 o'clock start, which is still pretty late for me, early for me. So, I like my my sleep-ins when I'm just before I start my new job.
Congrats
So-
on that. I saw that announcement. I'm very happy to hear that you've landed in a place after all that chaos.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of like a similar stage where we were at our last startup that it has the funding to go global, which we were looking to do and never got. So, and the funny thing is, those VCs paid us for us like just a couple of days ago. Like after going like
At least
nearly
they
3
came
months.
around. At least they came around.
But I don't understand. Like you just lost faith completely, and then you may as well just not pay us. I don't know. The whole team's left, so they're just all resigned within this week. Anyway, I just wanted to ask about this proposal and your opinions on it. And like I saw a comparison to my response about increasing the cost of RBW on breeding actually having a negative effect on the price, and their response was comparison to Axie that had an absolute huge growth. I ran an Axie guild at that time. That price got put up. The game population went from 18,000 to 300,000, and there was millions of people trying to get into the game. So it was obvious that the price was going to go up because that was, and it was also in a bull market. So I'm just looking for your opinion. Do you think that what they expect the price of the impact of this change to be a positive on the price or an increase in the price of RBW? Because the way I look at it, I think it's going to go down if they do that.
Yeah, I don't really have a comment on whether or not it's going to go up and down. I think constraining supply and moving supply off market is important right now, and I do view their proposal as kind of a continuing trend between the economic tightening measures that the design team has put in place, the staking emission reduction that we put through, not without certainly some drama, but we got it through. And then, this to me is kind of another proposal in that same vein. Now, the beauty of the DAO and what we've created here is it's designed to evolve. Everything, changes we make now could have to get rolled back or changed further. And so I guess to answer your question directly, Rubik, I look at that and I go, you know what, that's probably beneficial now. We may have to change it later, is my formal response to that, right? So what I love to see is active engagement, where community members are digging into the data and putting forward proposals that they believe to be right. And we're going to always have people on either side of it, right? So I'm, and this is probably the startup, most of my history running small early stage companies, is I'm always down to do the experiment and change things based on new data in the future. And that's, I guess, where I'd leave it.
Okay. Yeah, I've just been thinking about it like I care about this game and its future, and in my opinion, the solve in the price of RBW is creating demand and utility for the unicorns to make people want to breed, and actually reducing the cost of the RBW into the unicorn. So how you do that is a bigger problem than just putting the price up to, because personally, people will set a price to a unicorn, what they think it's worth, and then it doesn't matter how much RBW you put in, you say the cost to build it, the RBW will settle at the price that makes it worth the value of that unicorn in the people's minds. So the solving to the problem is actually making more utility for the unicorn and more demand for it. However we can do that. So that's my opinion on that, and I'll see. See how it plays out. That's all the questions I have today.
Man. Thank you for coming up, Rubik. Great way to end it. Holy shit, everyone, we are close. We're going to give the team the time that they need to fully QA this thing. When we're ready to launch, we'll announce it. I'm looking forward to seeing who gets in the first tournament. I want to know who wins the first tournament. I'm making an executive decision right now. We still have the eggs 1, 2, and 3 because we minted 3 as a team right before we opened up the mint to prove to ourselves in production that things were working correctly. We have held on to those Genesis eggs 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to give one of those to the person that wins the very first tournament. That'll be fun. All right, I'm going to go see who yells at me about that decision out here in the office. And I'm so pumped to get this out the door. I can't wait. If you have a great experience, please let the team know. We have our wonderful CM team aggregates a little thread of all the positive feedback. Obviously, we review all feedback, but all of the positive feedback and shout outs. And I tell you, that makes a meaningful difference to the people who've been working their asses off to deliver this to all of you. So if you enjoy what you see today, give us a shout out. Give the team a shout out. They really deserve it. Anyway, I'm pumped. I'm going to go help everybody QA test. Thank you, Sparkly. You had a very long day today. We appreciate it, as always. Stealthy on the tech. Let's fucking
Thank you
go,
so
Joust.
much, Aaron. Let's go. Let's go. Ubu. Ubu.
Bye, all.
Bye. You going in for an Ubu, Rubik? Chief? Nah, your boy's muted. Anyway, so we're gonna make that happen. We are going to oh, Goliath. Aaron has already left, but sure, you can come up on the stage. I'm gonna close up the requests for now. Hey, Chief. So yeah, that's a thing that happened. So for the first winner of the first jousting match ever to happen, you will receive, according to Aaron, an egg. One of our very first Genesis eggs. We've been keeping it for a super special event, and it turns out today is that super special event. So I'm really excited. Chat just got wild. Chat is wildin'. So am I. And we're really looking forward to this. It's just a couple more hours. Wait, an hour? An hour and some change until jousting is a thing. And I'm so excited, guys. Hey, Goliath, do you want to say something?
I simply wanted to do an uwu because you did
Oh,
it
hell
and nobody
yeah.
else followed. That was it. So uwu.
Aw, thank you. Uwu. Stealthy, you feel like saying uwu? It's a bit early for her today, so yes, it do be. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for attending the surprise town hall. So any questions that you might have afterwards will be answered by me. Just ping me. We will see you next week for the internal team town hall. This is going to feature Rice, Ziori, Catacorn, and LG Rob. So that's going to be super fun. We will post a recording of this town hall on our socials if you would like to give it a re-listen. And don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow Unicorn fam who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, you can ask on the town hall thread, on mod support, or on Ask the Devs, depending on your question. So this has been Sparkly Unicorn and Stealthy Unicorn on Tech, hosting the surprise town hall. Good morning, afternoon, night, and see you in game and on the jousting arena, Unicorn fam. Bye!